This is Dr. Anastasia Chopoulos, and today what I'm going to talk about is your relationships, and especially with regards to what's happening in your relationships with your family members and so forth during the holidays. And one of the reasons is that usually what happens during the holidays is that you end up with wherever there's a friction, and you are in this place where you have to be with all these people, and you can't choose your relatives. Well, you can if you're really into woo stuff that you chose the family to be in, but that's neither here nor there. What's happening usually is that you are experiencing sometimes something that's really difficult. For example, there's this one family that has 4 kids, and the youngest of the 4 children is really into manipulating everybody. And she will, tell one story, another story, and a third another story. So she has them all going through her, and then when the others start speaking to one another, they realize they've been manipulated, and it's really uncomfortable for them to find out. So what do you do in a situation like that, where mom invites all of the 4 children and their families over, and this one has created this situation? So there's, and this is exactly what happened with one of the people that listened to my free relationship healing, and she had had a long-standing feud. They're in their late 50s, early 60s, a long-standing feud with one of the sisters, and she got along really well with the other one. And so she listened to this relationship healing and went back home during Christmas dreading the fact that this particular sister was going to be there. And they didn't have a single bit of friction. They didn't have any problems. They got along. It was very civil. And when they departed, it wasn't like, okay, you're my long lost sister kind of thing. But, it was navigating through those difficult days as holidays where you're going, I really want my holidays to be great, and now I've got to confront this family member that has given me grief for 20 years, and you don't realize that you can actually have it really nice. So in the information for this video, you'll see that there's a link called scientifichealer.com/relationship, and that's one way to help. So that's one tip. Let's go through some more tips. So one of them is your mindset. And I started, if you saw my email this morning, I started with, out in life with a mom who, I guess I reminded her too much of herself. And so she was hard on herself, and therefore she was hard on me. So, there was guilt trips and criticism and, rampant perfectionism and, little snarky comments along the way were really hurtful. And so even though I love my mom and, even though she's passed, I would rather have her here than there. But there were some really difficult times, and what I learned how to do is to listen beyond the words. So if she would start on a criticism rant, and I learned this like 25, 30 years ago, then I would listen to what was behind it, not the words she was saying to me, because I knew it wasn't me at that point, but the words behind it. And then I'd hear her being very tired and, dragged out. She sounded depressed, and I'd say, "Are you okay, Mom? You sound really tired. Have you been to the doctor lately?" "Oh, yeah, I have been really tired," would be the response. "Thank you so much for asking." So a lot of times people that are highly critical are just looking for a response. So that's tip number 2, is to listen beyond the words, because the words aren't you know, what happens is that we see in others what we have in ourselves, right? So she saw in me what she had in herself and really wanted to cast off. And so she was projecting herself onto me and then criticizing me when I had nothing to do with whatever was going on. So that's tip number 2. Tip number 3 is there are lots of little energy healing tips to take care of, especially when you're hearing stuff you really don't like hearing. And one of them that I have used many, many times is cutting cords. So the proper way to cut a cord is to have the image in mind of who you're going to cut with and have them like, you know, that you're cutting the cord, and to start at the top above the crown of your head here and go all the way down to as long as your arm will go down. And you chop down 3 times and you think to yourself, cut those cords, right? And you take all of them and you imagine them dropping down deep into the earth as far as they'll go, because they're energy cords, right? We cord to everybody. And the only cord that's appropriate is your heart-to-heart cord, because we can exchange energy with people at distance, close up, when they're sitting within our energy field. We can cord to them. Like my mom and I could be talking on the phone. I would be living in Germany and she here in California, and but yet I would feel completely drained out after the phone call because she had corded to me and needed energy. So I'll get to that in just a second and why that's important to know for you. So here are the holiday periods coming up, and you're getting together with family members a lot of times that you don't see often, or it could be a wedding, it could be Christmas, it could be Hanukkah, it could be whatever the winter holiday is for you, wherever you are in the world, right? So you're cutting the cord, and so this is the proper way. But if you want to do it kind of not so visible, the important place is the solar plexus, which is right below the sternum, right? So right where you would have your stomach. And you just cut cords with both hands like this. Just do this motion. And as you cut the cord, you just imagine it going down. And the reason why the solar plexus is important is that's where we feel all our stress. As we add stress to ourselves, it's kind of like this ball of energy builds up right in front of the solar plexus. So cutting the cords helps drop that down. You can also use an aura spray. So it does the same thing. It releases the stress off the body. And what an aura spray is, you can look it up on the internet. There's lots and lots of recipes. It's usually a couple or 3 different essential oils, which are very, very high frequency, and you emulsify them with some water and you put them in an atomizer. And when you spray it on you, I usually carry some around with me. When you spray it on you, it helps release all of that stress. So that's another way to deal with it, and it smells really good. And so you could just be pretending like you're spraying yourself with some sort of, usually lavender is in there, right? So you have cutting the cords. You can cut big. You can do that at home. You can cut cords to ideas, to people, to thoughts, to anger, to jealousy, to whatever you don't want to have in your body. You can just release that. And the other is the aura spray, which will spray away the stress off your body. Like, it doesn't allow it to build up. So that's tip number 2, is to cut cords. And tip number 3 is to pull yourself in. So if I tell you to pull yourself into 18 inches, a lot of you will experience a little tickling on the arms, because the arms are very sensitive. Like when I say it, I always feel a tickling on the arms. And the reason is your normal extent is out about your arm span, or about 3 feet all around you, right? So your normal extent of your energy field is out that far. So when I tell you to pull yourself into 18 inches, you're pulling yourself into half of the the distance, which then creates 1/8 of the volume. 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2, right? So volume is in 3 dimensions. And you end up 1/8 the volume. So the energy that you have in your whole energy field is down to 1/8 its volume. So you have 8 times the energy density in there, which is why it creates that little bit of tickle. And what that does is it allows you to navigate crowds. And you can also imagine this, the normal extent of when you talk to people in a room, the normal extent when you don't know them very well is to be out, so you each extend your arm span, so out about 5 to 6 feet. That way your auras are only, or your energy fields are only touching, and they're not intertwined. In other countries, they're closer. Like if you'll go to some of the Middle Eastern countries, they'll come and talk to you right till where you're right in the face, and it's very uncomfortable. We'll back away. That's because we don't like being in each other's energy fields very well. So when you pull yourself in, you feel better actually, because especially in a crowd, because you will have fewer people's energy fields in your own energy field, right? So now you have that. So pull yourself into 18 inches. And the other is to imagine that you have a kind of a sky blue color along the outer edge, and make sure it's completely filled in front and back. Because a lot of times we forget to fill it in, especially top and below, right? So when you pull it in, put a nice sky blue color on it. The sky blue color allows only the high energy frequencies in and blocks the low energy frequencies. Pure science. And I know it works because sensitive children, when I put different shields on them, they responded the best to that, because sensitive children will see and feel other people's energy without filtering, because they're, 2-year-olds, they'll see it without filtering. And when I would put this sky blue color on them, it could even be a little bit green. When I would put that color on them, they responded the best, and they had the least amount of reaction to the adults around them. So that's tip number 3, is to pull yourself in and keep your energy field nice and tight and sealed up with a sky blue color on the edge. And that protects you from the near field interactions. And if somebody is in a room and there are some people that you know that will fill a whole room up while they're talking, and you know who they are, they seem to suck all the air out of it. They're either bragging, or they'll tell you start to tell a story about yourself and they'll take over. You can't get a word in edgewise and things like that. And these are really, when you don't hate on them, they're insecure. And so they want you to like them, and that's what they're doing. So you can always tell them, could you please pull yourself in a little? And they'll go, huh? And then you go, never mind. And they'll have done it, because their subconscious is listening to your command, and their subconscious doesn't filter it. And they go, oops, I'm out too far. And they'll pull themselves in. So I have used that trick a couple of times. People that are called narcissists will tend to do that, because they are so insecure that they want everybody, they want everybody's attention. So that's tip number 3, is to take care of your energy field. And so tip number 4 is to start thinking about, I said earlier that it's them, not you. And so now the thing that I've done is I've turned it around and looked at people who are behaving in a way that's, like something I would never do, and something that's hurtful towards other people. I always say they are crying for healing. And what I do is I say, let's take the 30,000 foot view. So meaning you go up and up and up, and you start looking at what their life is like. Not that you condone their behavior, not that you sympathize with their behavior, but at least for you to understand that it's them and not you, and not take it personally. Because so many times I have taken things personally. I know, and I know that a lot of people do. Like, why do they say that to me? I tell a story about Susan, who is a business owner who spent 40 years angry at her dad, and simultaneously she spent 40 years having a very unusual immune system collapse, which led her to have cancer and all kinds of other intestinal, all kinds of problems. And so she was in constant infection and spent at least half of her life on antibiotics in order to stay alive, because the immune system was just simply not working, and she would get shots once a month to help boost her immune system. So she spent all that time really angry at her father, and I could feel the anger inside her. And, you know, there's a number of emotional tests that you can do to find out exactly what it is. Especially if you're a healer, you can do muscle testing using a specific chart that was devised by Dr. Scott Walker, then later updated by Dr. Brad Nelson. So these emotions can run through the body, and they operate on the meridians, right? So they're operating on the meridians, like anger sits in the liver and bitterness in the gallbladder, right? So she was having this thing resonating with anger, and it had stayed in her body for 40 years. So I did a relationship healing on her with her father, and then I helped release that anger out of her body. And so the next week we get on the phone, and she goes, I don't know what you did with me, but I can't even muster anger up against my father. And then over the subsequent months, her entire family was wondering what happened to the old Susan, and the new Susan was so much sweeter, so kind, and she had already thought she was that way. She had already thought she was being kind and generous, because that's who she was. I knew that from speaking to her, but she had kind of like this gruff exterior. She did not know that she was wearing this thing with like an envelope. It was like repellent all over her body, telling people, stay away, I'm an angry person. And she would also attract angry people. So this is another thing to start to get in touch with what's going on with you, that you are attracting that kind of person. And when I helped release that relationship with her dad, not only she's a business owner, not only did her business improve every month by leaps and bounds, she said her phone was ringing off the hook, and that in a very short amount of time, her business went up by 30% with no new advertising, no new networking, no new nothing, just by the virtue of the fact that she had released that anger, and her immune system came back online. So she was a very different person. And so you can imagine, you're not even aware that you have something going on, and people are observant of it, and they don't tell you. So think about it. Maybe you are thinking something about other people and you don't tell them, or you tell them in a way that they can't hear it. And that's the usual mode of operation, because you're emotionally caught up in it. So by taking that 30,000 foot view and looking, maybe that angry person, or maybe that critical person is very depressed. Not that you're excusing it, only that you're understanding that it has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with them. And that you don't have to take it personally. So there are my 4 tips for navigating the holidays. I am wishing you all the best for your holidays. And in the United States here, we have our big feast day or Thanksgiving Day, where we give thanks for having the best harvest of the year and for being with our families. So gratitude is a very high level emotion, and the highest level is being grateful that you are here. So I am grateful that you are here, and I hope you are grateful that you are here too, meaning here, alive, and experiencing this wonderful life. So you have a great week and start your holidays off really great. Thank you, thank you, thank you all for listening. I appreciate you. Please send this to someone who could use the help. Give it a 5-star or thumbs up rating. Share it with your friends and be sure to subscribe to my channel. I look forward to seeing you next week, same time, same place.